I've got some great trips planned this year that I'm really excited about. I'm hoping you do also, since that's kind of what we're about here at Amateur Traveler. Vacation season is nearly upon us. This year, treat yourself to luxe upgrades that you deserve with Quince's high quality travel essentials at fair prices, like lightweight European linen styles from $30, washable silk tops, and comfy lounge sets, premium luggage options, and stylish tote bags to carry it all. The best part? All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost to the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I love that. I'm setting aside my Quince travel pants and my cashmere sweater for my next trip to the East Coast. For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns, plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you're looking for another podcast to listen to, we have a new show for you called Tim Green's Nothing Left Unsaid podcast. Hosted by former NFL linebacker, TV commentator, and New York Times bestselling author Tim Green and his son Troy, this podcast takes you behind the typical travel tales into extraordinary lives of people who've redefined adventure. In episode 57, featuring Steve Hafner, CEO and founder of kayak.com, you'll discover how childhood experiences of constant travel inspired Steve to create one of the world's most successful travel companies. Imagine moving from Peru to Guatemala, Costa Rica, and beyond, all before adulthood, and turning that global perspective into a billion-dollar idea. Steve shares candid stories about entrepreneurship, the challenges he overcame from launching Kayak to navigating the impacts of 9/11 and COVID on the travel industry, and practical insights how anyone can turn innovative ideas into reality. If you love travel and want to learn how someone's life's journeys shape success and resilience, this episode is a must listen. Find Nothing Left Unsaid with Steve Hafner on your favorite podcast app today. Again, that's Nothing Left Unsaid, because every journey has a story. Hi, this is Chris, and this is not going to be a new episode this week, but one from our archives from 2 years ago, because I am traveling doing Walks Japan, hiking in southern Japan. You'll hear more about that later. But today, an episode on the Queensland Outback. I hope you enjoy it. Amateur Traveler, episode 839. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about bush rangers and billy can lunches, dinosaurs and Qantas, emus and kangaroos, as we go to the Outback in Queensland. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Queensland. I'd like to welcome to the show Melissa Delaware from thriftyfamilytravels.com and queenslandtravelguide.com.au, who's come to talk to us about the Queensland Outback. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chris, for having me.
Melissa and I met at Tbex in Thailand and had a good time talking about things that we record on, and you are a big fan of the Outback. What is your connection with Queensland, first of all?
I have lived in Queensland my whole life, in Brisbane to be exact, which is probably a bit odd for travel-obsessed people, but I haven't lived anywhere else. I've always lived in Brisbane. And like most people, I have tended to holiday on the coast, the Great Barrier Reef and Gold Coast. And it wasn't really until when COVID, we had quite strict lockdowns here in Australia. And so basically for a good part of a couple of years, I couldn't leave Queensland. And so I guess I was forced to travel to different places. And someone very early on said, "Oh, have you been to the Outback?" And I said, "No, I haven't. I should go there." So I went off for a 2-week trip with my 8-year-old daughter, just her and myself, and just absolutely loved it. And so pretty much every other trip we did during COVID was in the Queensland Outback. It's just an
Excellent.
amazing place and a bit disappointed in myself that I haven't been sooner.
And why should someone go to the Queensland Outback?
Okay, firstly, I think when most people think of Queensland or plan a visit to Queensland, they're thinking Great Barrier Reef, maybe Gold Coast theme parks, beautiful beaches. And I just find people aren't thinking about the outback. I don't know why really, because it's amazing. And I think particularly perhaps for your North American listeners, and I know when I'm traveling around the world and people talk to me, what's Australia like? What's Australia? Are there kangaroos jumping down the street? And the answer is no, there's not. But if you do want to see kangaroos jumping down the street, then go to the outback. It's absolutely amazing. The landscape's amazing. The people are amazing. You can walk into a bar and just talk to a local all night. And the other thing is, even if you went in what's considered the peak season, there's not going to be masses of tourists everywhere. There is going to be masses of tourists in the Great Barrier Reef on our beautiful beaches. So, yeah, I just think if you want to see what you think Australia is, what people seem to the stereotypical view of Australia, then go to the outback.
Cool. What kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us, Melissa?
Okay, so you asked me to consider a 1 week itinerary. You're not going to see all of Queensland Outback in 1 week. It's
Mm-hmm.
a huge place. I actually looked at it this morning that 65% of Queensland is actually the outback, which
Okay.
surprised myself. So I know particularly your listeners are coming from North America and are limited on time. So for 1 week, I'm going to recommend that people come to Longreach and Winton. The reason being is they're the easiest places to get to and the quickest places to get to fly from Brisbane. They really offer, I think, all the highlights of the outback.
Okay. And which one are we going to go to first? Should we talk about Longreach?
Yes, the Longreach. So I just thought I'd start by getting there because I just wanted to make sure that, so whilst I'm going to recommend that you fly there, I just wanted to let your listeners know, like, most Aussies, like when we visit the outback, we tend to go off on a road trip in our caravans or motorhomes or RVs or swags, whatever you want to call it, and just pull up
Mm-hmm.
wherever you like for the night. So that is open to international travelers. If they are interested in
Mm-hmm.
something like that, obviously they're not going to be able to bring their own caravans. But there is a website called Camplify where people advertise their own vans and stuff that people can hire, like an Airbnb, I guess, but with your caravan. You probably have the same thing in North America.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you're wanting that sort of real Aussie experience, you can do that. The other way you can do it is you can come and hire a car. So if you're flying into Brisbane or Cairns, you can hire a car from there and drive. But it is a really long drive. And if you are limited on time, that's where I'm going to say fly. Oh, there is one other way that a lot of people go to Longreach. All the oldies out here love the train. So you can take the train, but that is 26 hours from Brisbane to Longreach.
Oh
And
my.
it's a really great thing to consider. But it's probably going to take a huge chunk out of your time. So I'm going to this itinerary that I'm going to talk you through is based on that you'll fly into Longreach. So you can fly from Brisbane. It takes about 3 hours, and there is one flight every day. That's with Qantas. Or you can also fly from Townsville. So for those not familiar with Townsville, that's in the far north of Queensland where most people go to Cairns to see the Great Barrier Reef. So
Mm-hmm.
Townsville is a bit more convenient for people who might be up that way. But those flights are only, I think it's twice a week with an airline called Rex. So there are your two options of flying in.
And I'm
Once
seeing
you
if I
get
did want to drive it, Google tells me that the whole drive time Brisbane to Longreach is something like 13 hours of drive time.
Yeah, I would probably recommend you could do it in like 2 days, or I suppose you do it in one day if you want to drive that much. When I have done it, I have stopped at lots of places along the way, but
Mm-hmm.
probably comfortably, if you just want to drive it, you're probably going to go 2 days. But there's so much to see along the way, you're probably going to want to take a week to drive there. But anyway, I'd recommend flying. For people who want to do it in a week, you're going to have to fly. Now, I also recommend before coming that you arrange for car hire at the airport. Obviously, this is a
Mm-hmm.
remote town in outback Queensland. You don't have buses or trains or anything. There are a few taxis, and hotels can help you with probably airport transfers. Some of the tours on offers will pick you up, but you are going to be limited if you don't have a car. While you can walk around to some places, you're not going to be able to walk everywhere. And it's
Okay.
really hot. Yeah, it's not essential to have a car, but I do recommend it.
When you say it's really hot,
Sorry.
that does beg the question. Normally, I ask this later on, but when we're talking the Outback, what season do I want to be coming?
Okay, I was going to talk about that at the end, but we can talk about that now. I mean, obviously you can go anytime, but generally they have their season is April to October. Now, obviously
Okay.
we're opposite to you guys, so our winter is June, July, and
Mm-hmm.
August, and that is when I would recommend you go during that time. Although I've been in April, so at the start of the season, and it's really hot. But if you've got people coming that are used to coming from warmer climates, it's certainly doable as long as you've just got plenty of water and that. But
And it's a
even if you were to,
hot, dry heat, is my understanding.
correct, hot and dry, for me, I come from a place where it's hot and humid. I actually find the heat out there much more bearable, even
Mm-hmm.
though technically it's hotter there than where I live. So
Okay.
just be mindful of that. Lots and lots of water, lots of sunscreen, and a lot of your trips and that you probably want to start earlier in the day so that you're out of the real hot sun in the middle of the day. But yeah, even if you wanted
Okay.
to come out of that season, some things will be open, but a lot of the really awesome stuff to do, they won't be open. So yeah, April to October is generally what they call the season in the Outback. And I'd
Okay.
recommend you try and go June, July sort of time, but any of that time's fine.
Okay. So I've gotten to Long Reach. What am I going to do?
All right, and you got your car. And the other thing I would just
Mm-hmm.
say, because I do know it gets asked a lot, is do you need a four-wheel drive? I think people
Mm-hmm.
think, oh, it's Outback, there's going to be no roads and I'm going to be driving over dirt and gravel. That's not the case. Your average normal driving car's fine, but a four-wheel drive could give you access to a few more places if you're interested. But I'm just going to say, everywhere I recommend in this itinerary, you don't need a four-wheel drive to get to. It's not necessary, but yeah, and I often find the four-wheel drives are so much more expensive. So it's not necessary. Just get whatever you can get, really.
I
One more
wasn't going to ask if you needed a four-wheel drive. I was going to ask, do you need a rhubarb?
good question, Chris, because the next thing I was going to say is if you are driving, you are not supposed to be driving in the dark because that's where the animals are more active and you don't want to be hitting a kangaroo. It's very sad, obviously, for the kangaroo, but if you hit a kangaroo, then it's also very sad for your car. It is likely to be completely totaled and off
Mm-hmm.
to the, well, I don't know, we call it wreckers. I don't know what you call it over there, your car will be wiped out. And not just the big kangaroos, there's lots of small wildlife, little wallabies and echidnas
Mm-hmm.
and that, and you're not going to see them until the next morning when they're on the side of the roads. But my other thing that I'd like to say about that is if you do want to see wildlife, a really good time to go out to see them is at dusk and dawn where there's enough light to see things and because the animals are still quite active you've got a better chance of seeing them than like during the day where everything's light. One time my daughter and I were driving from Longreach to Winton about 6:30 in the morning and we had to stop in the middle of the road and wait for this family of emus. There were three emus just really slowly taking the time walking across the road. It was just wonderful for us sitting there watching them because normally, to be honest, if you see an emu, you only see them for a second as they run past you. But yeah, it was really awesome to see them like that. And for me, anyway, nothing beats seeing the animals in the wild. Kangaroos you can tend to see at any time during the day, not on the road, like hopping around the place. But yeah, the other animals can be a bit harder to see. So yeah. But anyway, so that's about driving. We haven't even gotten to the itinerary yet. So day one in Longreach. So it's going to obviously depend, I thought, what time you arrive. I think most of the flights will arrive around lunchtime. So I've thought you get at the airport. It's a really tiny little airport. You'll be in and out in seconds. Get your car. And so I recommend now probably going to your accommodation. And the one place I recommend people staying at is Mitchell Grass Retreat. I've stayed here myself and it's absolutely stunning. It is a little bit out of town, so it's probably only going to be good for people who do have their own vehicle. It's only 5-10 minutes drive out of town, so not far, but you're not going to walk it. So this place is glamping tents. And I don't want people to be put off by the word tent. This place is probably the most luxurious place I've ever stayed at. It's beautiful air conditioning. The tents are huge, like big king size bed, luxury linen, beautiful en suites, massive bathtubs, and the bathtubs like have privacy windows so they can't see in, but you can see out across the plains, and you've got a great deck with your own barbecue. You've even got like a little fireplace. Just absolutely fantastic. And there's a pool there as well, which is often needed in the outback. It could be a bit pricey. So I just had another option there for people if that's too much, or if they don't have their own car, then I recommend staying at the staging post. So this is another unique property though. It's in the centre of town, and it's inspired by the stagecoach travel era. So there's lots of bits and bobs decorating the room. You
Hmm.
feel like you're back in the day with the horse-drawn coaches and that. And they're fairly inexpensive. They have little kitchenettes so you can prepare some of your own meals if you like, and it's right in town so you can easily walk wherever you want to go. So once you've settled into your accommodation, to be honest, I reckon enjoy your long reach. If you're at Mitchell Grass, you're probably going to just be in heaven anyway, and you want to relax and take it all in. It's amazing. Honestly, you've got to leave time for it. I didn't leave enough time to. Or if you are ready to go out and explore, I probably recommend going to the Qantas Museum. And I'm going to talk about Qantas Museum a bit later in the itinerary because I probably don't recommend getting straight into it. I think the thing that people have to factor in is it's really hot, and I find when I'm sightseeing when it's really hot I get a bit more tired. And yeah, and like these museums, like to really do them justice you need a good couple of hours. If you want to get into it, go for it, but if not, just I say take it easy that first afternoon. Go to the pub, go and talk to a local bushie and let them spin you a yarn and learn a little bit more about Longreach. But
And besides buying around for everybody in the pub, any tricks to fitting in or making friends in a pub in the
yeah, okay.
outback?
To be honest, most of the time when I'm in the outback, I say I'm by myself, but it's with my daughter, and so she'll be in a room catching up on a social media, and so I'll just go to the pub by myself. So my number one rule is you always grab a stool at the counter at the bar. Normally, a lot of the people behind the bar, they're actually, because from all over the world, but that, and they more than happy to have a chat. They're not run off their feet. Not sometimes they are, but generally they're not run off their feet. So they're happy to have a chat and they'll tell you what's going on. And Jono might be on the stool next to you and he'll start chatting to you. And before you know it, you've made a couple of friends. It's pretty easy going. I just love it. And you know what the other good thing is, Chris? You don't need to dress up. Wear your, I'll be careful with my words here. Wear your flip flops. Is that what you call them?
Sure.
Wear your flip flops and your daggy old t-shirt and shorts, and you'll fit in just fine. Don't need to dress up in the outback,
And
which
you
is
were
great for
hesitating saying flip flops because the Australian word is jambles?
thong thongs.
Thongs, thongs, that's right. Trying to remember which one to. Yes, okay. You could also wear your
Yeah,
thong,
so
but
we
not
would,
those, not that kind. Okay.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, we would wear our thongs. It's very acceptable to wear your thongs in or your flip flops at the pub there. But okay, so day two, we're gonna really get right into Longreach. And before we get into it, I have to tell you about this family in Longreach called the Kinnan family. Now, they run a tourist company called Outback Pioneers, and these guys are just awesome. So they've lived in Longreach pretty much for decades, their whole life. They're graziers with sheep and cattle, and they've brought up their family there. They've now got 3 adult children who are all married and got kids themselves. But we've been hit really hard by drought here in not just Queensland, but Australia. Lots of farmers going bankrupt, all that sort of thing. Back in 2006, I think it is, that they said they needed to look for extra income, and they saw all these caravans coming to Longreach. So they thought, oh, let's maybe start up a tour and show some tourists around. So they started one tour, did really well, started another tour, did really well. Now these guys run so many different tours. They own the staging coast, the accommodation I just talked about, as well
Okay.
as a pub in town. And they only run all this during the season. So when they're out of season, they're back on their property running sheep and cattle. So these guys know their stuff. So you're getting a genuine, authentic experience when you go out with them. And
Hmm.
the other thing, they're hilarious. They're so funny. So I've done tours with all of them, the sons and the dad Richard, and you're just going to be in stitches. So as well as learning so much about the region and the life of working on stations, you're just going to be in stitches. They're so funny. But anyway, the reason why I wanted to mention them up front is because a lot of the tours that I'm going to talk about are from them.
Okay.
So yeah, you definitely have to look at Outback Pioneers if you're going. First tour that I recommend. So on day two, it's going to start at 8:30. So you'll be up early, and this is the Cobb and Co. Stagecoach experience.
Okay.
So this Cobb and Co. For anyone who doesn't know, was just the name of the stage coaches, like the wagons that are
Mm-hmm.
drawn by horses, which was the way that people got around Australia 100 odd years ago. And so they have one of these stage coach, oh, I have a couple of them actually, a couple of these Cobb and Co stage coaches, and you jump on board. They drive you through town and then out onto the land, and you're galloping on one of the old Cobb and Co routes. It's like super fun. The coaches fit a few people inside, and then you have a couple of people up the top, out the back, or you can even sit with the driver up the front. And when I
Okay.
did it, I sat up the top with my daughter, and it was so fun. But we were absolutely covered in red dirt afterwards.
Okay. Out on a
They
dirt
actually,
road here from what I'm seeing in their pictures. Okay.
yeah, keep your mouth closed the whole time. And it was quite funny actually when we got back, when they dropped us back. What do you call it? Oh, like those big blowers that you use in your garden to blow away leaves and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
They blowed my daughter and I down and all the dirt off us. It was quite funny, but you never get that red dirt out of your clothes, man. Yeah, it's there for life.
Mother's Day is coming up, and although I am not a mother, I had one and have been married to one for quite a while, and I know that what they love are pictures of the people they love. Give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame preloaded with decades of family photos for this Mother's Day. I love my Aura frame. It sits here right on a table in front of me as I work, as a constant reminder of the people who I am blessed to have in my family. Aura Frames was named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter, and it's easy to see why. There's unlimited storage, so you can add as many photos, videos, and funny memes as you can find, and it's so simple to set it up. Just plug it in and share away. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's auraframes.com, promo code TRAVELER. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. And thanks to Aura Frames for the joy they brought me, but also for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Do you say data or data? Well, at my house, we say data, and for the longest time, I thought paying a fortune on my monthly data plan was just normal. That was until I found out about Mint Mobile and their premium wireless plans that start at just $15 a month. The quality of the Mint Mobile wireless service is just as good as my old provider, but costs less. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you. All plans come with high-speed data, or data, your choice, and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get $3 of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. No matter how you say it, don't overpay for it. Shop data plans at mintmobile.com/traveler. That's mintmobile.com/traveler. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. And thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
But good fun. And so while you're in this coach, you wear like headset, and so the guide, the driver, he's telling you some stories about what it would have been like to ride on a coach and a Cobb and Co wagon, and who would have been sitting at top. So I was quite surprised to learn that he said all the rich people would be sitting at the top. That would be the
Oh,
expensive seat. And I remember saying, "Oh, why you get all dirty in that?" And he said, "Imagine though, if you're cramped inside that wagon in the hot heat, how smelly and disgusting it would be." And I went, "Oh, okay, yeah, I get that, yeah." And just hearing the stories, traveling days and days in these wagons, and the passengers just slept on the side of the road, and dusty roads, like we're not talking like there's no petrol station with it or gas station with a room on it. So it's, yeah, just yeah, it's so much fun. I highly recommend it. We really loved it.
I'm looking at pictures of the Cobb and Co. and it's
Oh yeah.
dealing with some of my preconceptions. I was wondering if, as I'm out there, is it flat and featureless, and am I going to be able to see for miles? But I'm seeing you're riding through what I would call scrub trees, maybe up to 20 feet
Yeah.
tall, or bushes only 6 feet tall, and dirt roads. Is that pretty typical terrain for this area?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because it changes a lot. One minute, like, I'm thinking, I remember at first we were just riding along completely barren, dusty nothingness. But
Mm-hmm.
then there's a lot of the outback, people probably don't realize there's a lot of waterways, a lot of rivers, streams,
Sure.
creeks.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get closer to those areas, then yes, there are a lot more trees. Generally, so then I guess it starts from nothingness, then you get those sort of a meter high shrubs, and then as you get closer to the creeks again, then you're getting into more trees and stuff like that. So yeah, it varies quite a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but honestly, I just can't get enough of the landscape. It's just beautiful. So yeah, when you come back from the Cobb and Co, they take you in for a beautiful morning tea with scones. And do you have scones? Do you have scones in North America?
Sure. We have scones or scones. Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's a good Aussie morning tea with cream and jam and a cup of tea. And it's served by waitresses in traditional clothing, so it's quite nice. And then they take you to watch an old Aussie bush movie. The one that we watched was like from the 1950s. If you're not really familiar with the area, you watch these movies, which gives you more of a feeling for what it was like. And then after that, they take us out the back for what they call the Harry Redford old time tent show. So the
Okay.
purpose of this, I know it sounds a bit weird, but the purpose of this is just showing us what bush entertainment was like back in the day before Netflix was there. So they said you'd have a couple of guys traveling around, I guess, basic sort of circus things with farm animals and silly jokes and skits. Pretty lame, really, and you're more cringing than laughing. But it's just to give you an idea of what it would have been like back then. But while you're watching the show, you can have like a traditional bush lunch, which they call a billy can lunch. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if you'd be familiar with the billy can,
So a
but
billy would
it's,
be a watering hole, and a billy can
yeah. So
would
I
be
guess,
the can you took your lunch in down to the watering hole.
yeah, pretty much. And often, though, these billy cans, you would put water in them and hold them over the fire to heat water. But
I,
so they've got
I think we
multiple
would
options,
call a bucket or
purposes.
a pail.
But these are very similar, like you said. So they serve you lunch in it, which is
Okay.
we say sanger. We have a sandwich, a sanger, and a piece of cake or something, and an apple and a drink, just a simple sort of lunch. But yeah, so that's that tour, and all up it goes for about 4 hours. But yeah, great introduction to life in the outback, I think.
Okay.
So that's going to finish after lunch. And then, so I would probably recommend maybe going back and having a relax in your room. If you're staying at Mitchell Grass, have a swim. It does finish in the centre of Longreach, so there are a couple of shops which probably take you a few minutes to look at, not very long. Again, like I'm saying about the heat, this is the middle of the day. Good idea to have a rest in your air conditioned room, probably.
You mentioned
Then
it being
in the after,
hot. One thing you didn't say is that Long Reach is actually on the Tropic of Capricorn. So we are in the tropics,
it is,
or
yes, that's
just
right.
barely in the tropics.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, it does go through, so you can see that. And I hadn't even thought about mentioning that, but yes, you can go and see where that passes through town. But yeah, later on that evening, another tour with the Kinnan family, and this one's called the Starlight Cruise Experience.
Okay.
And this is basically about having a beautiful cruise down the river in town, as well as having an evening around the campfire, outback style.
Okay.
It starts around 4:30 in the afternoon, and they have a couple of big old paddle wheelers, and you jump on board and you have a few nibbles of cheese and crackers and things like that. It's BYO, so you can bring your own drinks on board. They're not for sale. They have soft drinks or soda and that for sale, but not alcoholic drinks. So if you want that, BYO. But as you
Okay.
cruise up the river, you get a little bit of commentary about what's around, and there's just something really amazing about the sky in the outback. The colors are, I don't know, people talk about big skies, and I didn't really understand that phrase until I was out there. It's just amazing. And this is on dusk, so you're watching the sky change all these different colors as the sun sets, and you're sitting there relaxing on this big, beautiful paddle wheeler. It's just amazing. It's a really beautiful way to finish the day. The cruise doesn't go for too long, maybe an hour, I think. And so you jump off the cruise back up onto the riverbank. Then while you're on the cruise, they've cooked you this beautiful stew on the campfire. We're not talking like fancy cuisine here. This is a stew cooked on the campfire right in front of you. You can see it getting cooked there, and it's absolutely delicious. So with damp, which is like bread cooked as well, and there's plenty of food. I think they're often seconds or third, but I highly recommend leaving room for dessert, because then another old-fashioned apple pie and custard was served as well on the night we were there. And while you're having your dinner, they're entertaining you with bush poetry. Poetry was quite popular out in the bush back in the day. A lot of famous
Okay.
poets come from the bush. So they're reading some bush poetry, a few songs, silly jokes, things like that. And then after dinner, they've got down on the riverbank, like stadium style seating along the bank with a big sort of screen in the water. And they show you a short little movie about Captain Starlight. So I don't know if your listeners know, Australia's pretty famous for its bushrangers. All the
Outlaws.
bushrangers were pretty well known for stealing cattle. And so this little movie they show you talks about Captain Starlight, one of Australia's most famous bushrangers, who was known for stealing 1,000 cattle and walking them basically across Australia where he sold them. I don't know how it's done. They show you all this in the movie and you're just like, oh my God, how is that even possible? And he did go to trial, but somehow he was found not guilty. So he's pretty famous, Captain Starlight, out in the outback. So they tell you all about him.
Hmm.
And that's where the night finishes. So again, that's about 4 or 5 hours that night. It does end up to be a pretty late night actually, but it's worth it for that outback experience. So now we've got day 3, a little bit different now. As you can imagine, the kids out in the outback often are hours and hours away from a school,
Sure.
which makes they don't just catch a school bus or walk down to school. So I would probably assume you guys have something similar in North America, but we have this school of long distance out here in the outback. And in Longreach is their headquarters of the School of Distance. So you can go there and see the teachers set up teaching the kids and all of their resources and just how they do it. It's really interesting. The tour around the school goes for about 90 minutes. And
Hmm.
it's just really fascinating. You think, wow, how do they do this? Even we learnt when we were there that they even put on like a school musical each year. So the kids learn. Yeah,
Okay.
it's crazy, right? I was like, how? Kids learn their roles and practice all online and then just come together once a year and maybe do a couple of rehearsals and then put it on like in the town, in a theatre in town, which all the locals come to watch. It's like meant to be the highlight of Longreach or something. It's really well worth it. Make sure you're going to the Longreach School of Distance. They run tours all the time, like Monday to Friday. I happened to go when it was school holiday, so I didn't actually get to see it all in action, but it was still fascinating. So I do recommend if it's school term, it would be even better, I think. Worth it. And they have two tours a day, 9:30 and 11, and I recommend you go to the first one at 9:30. So you've got heaps of time then to go over to the Stockman Hall of Fame.
Now, it used to be
So the Stockman,
that the School of Long Distance or the School of the Air was the other name that I remember hearing in Australia was shortwave radio.
mm-hmm.
Is it internet now or is it still radio?
Yeah. No, yeah, so obviously it's mostly internet these days. They do use like all these different, like they're going through the different platforms and stuff that they were doing.
Hmm.
And they use a lot of Zoom and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It, and I guess these days you can imagine, you can think, oh yeah, I can gather. And particularly after we've all been through COVID and
Yeah.
a lot of people are doing
There's a lot
Zoom
of people who
stuff.
understand long distance learning now better than they used to. Yes.
Exactly, right? But this hasn't just started in the last couple of years. They've been doing this for, I can't remember
With
how
generations
long.
now.
Yes, I visited other school there around Australia like 10 years ago, things way
Mm-hmm.
before Zoom. And it's just fascinating how they do it. Like they full on have like libraries there and they send library books to the kids and return them. These kids are obviously missing out in some respects. Every aspect that we think of in school life, they managed to do it somehow. So this is really interesting. And yeah, I just found it very interesting. And particularly, I suppose I have a school age child myself. So she was there and she could get to see it all too. It's really fascinating. But yeah, so we're moving on to the Stockman Hall of Fame. Stockman basically is a probably equivalent to your cowboys. They're basically just people who look after cattle on big properties, which they say like the stockmen are like the backbone of the outback. That's where a lot of the farms are and the cattle. And as you can imagine, it's pretty harsh out there working on the land. So the Stockman Hall of Fame brings that all together and through various exhibits and you hear different stories about how men and women work and live and survive out there, I guess. The way you visit the museum is there's three separate sections. So they have like a movie and they have a live show and then they have the museum.
Okay.
And you can buy a ticket just to the museum
Mm-hmm.
or your other option is you buy a ticket for everything. And I think you've got to buy it for everything, in my view.
Okay.
Particularly if you're coming from out of town or from outside Queensland. You start with the movie, which is a great introduction to a bit of the history of Australia, but more through the eyes of the stockmen and how they look after the stock.
Okay.
So that's a really good introduction to everything. It will help what you're seeing if you're not really familiar with it.
Okay.
I think once a day they have a live show. I'm pretty sure it's only once a day at about 12 o'clock. So you really need to time your visit to the Stockman Hall of Fame so you don't miss this show. Although tickets have to be pre-booked anyway, I think. And so
Okay.
the show's really good. It's basically a one-man show, but with lots of animals. So you've got the horses, the working dogs, and the sheep, and you see how all of these animals work together and how the stockmen use all the different animals to work on in the outback and on the properties. It's really interesting. And if you're an animal lover like me, you'll just love seeing the dogs and that do all their cute little tricks and stuff. And then there's a lot of outback entertainment again. So you've got some songs and some very lame jokes.
Okay.
I don't know what it is in the outback. Lots of, if you're familiar with dad jokes, then that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much what it is.
Okay.
And you're a dad, so you've probably got a
I'm
few good dad jokes
I've got a
yourself.
few dad jokes. I try to make sure that my son-in-law has a fair amount now that he is a father.
Yeah, we get a lot around here as well. But yeah, then you've got the museum, and the museum is really fascinating. Through lots of different exhibits, displays. It's a multimedia museum, but to help you understand what you're looking at, you get one of those headsets that you can listen
Mm-hmm.
to, and it helps you understand what you're looking at. But again, it really depends on what you're interested in. So it's not just about the stockman either. It's about living in the outback in
Mm-hmm.
general. And I do remember my daughter spending a long time in the section which is about the Royal Flying Doctors.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you have. Do you have the equivalent to that in North America?
I don't We may in Alaska, but I don't remember
Okay.
that. The original tying in this story and the last story, the original School of the Air in Australia was started by the Royal Flying Doctors in
Mm,
1951.
correct.
And so
Yeah.
the grandparents of the kids who are in the schools now were the first kids to do their schooling by radio.
That's right. So it's also really fascinating to learn how people out there receive their medical treatments. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's quite interesting. And I remember my daughter spending hours in that, or maybe not hours, but look, so there's something for everybody. It just depends on what your interests are. I think we probably spent about 3 hours across all of the sections, not just the museum. And there's
Okay.
also, I didn't mention this before, but there's also a cafe on site. So it's a good place to perhaps get your lunch there before you go through as well.
Okay.
So that is day 3. Day 4, doing another tour with the Outback Pioneer, the Kinnan family. And so they still live nearby, the Kinnan family, on a station called No Go. And they actually take people out on their property to show you what it's like actually on a working Outback station.
When you say
So the
station, that for
property,
us is a ranch. And so this is a sheep and cattle
yeah,
ranch.
yes, that's correct.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yes, that's very right. The ranch. So our property was built a long time ago, and apparently when it was first built, it got flooded quite a lot, and it stopped the people getting in and out. And so apparently that is why it's called No Go Station, because it was a no go.
Okay.
I know, right? True story, apparently. That's what they told us. I believe them. Yeah. So for this tour, they start by picking you up in town. The station's a little bit out of town, but they start by picking you up in town and they drive you a little bit around Longreach and show you a few landmarks and that. But then once you get onto the property, you head straight into the shearing sheds
Okay.
and then they have a chat to you about what life is like as a shearer, and they actually do a demonstration there, shearing the sheep. They've got the cattle dogs there doing all the rounding up the sheep and showing how they bring the sheep up into the shearing shed.
I don't
Really
know if
hard work, hey.
people have seen a sheep being sheared, but time is not wasted.
Right, it's
They could
amazing. Oh,
shear a sheep
I
in
wish I had some
seconds.
numbers. Yes, it's crazy how many. For me, I reckon if I had to shear a sheep, it'd probably take me half a day, but or maybe even longer. But yeah, it's just crazy because I think they get paid like per how many sheep they shear. So they're just smashing through it. It's crazy.
So the world
Um,
record for shearing sheep is held by two gentlemen who are from New Zealand, who in the course of 8 hours sheared 1,410 sheep.
whoa, that's crazy. That's like impossible, isn't it? Like,
So you
yeah,
could do the math. The sheep is very quickly sheared.
very quickly. And you know what? The sheep probably like it that way because, it's probably not very comfortable for them. So they're in and out. So yeah, that's how the tour starts. You go in there, you can ask a few questions, etc. But then they've got this super cool double-decker bus. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with a double-decker bus that you jump on and
Hmm.
sightsee around a city,
Sure.
like a hop-on, hop-off. They've got one of these, which apparently a company was selling them in Sydney. So they bought one and drove it from Sydney to Longreach, and they've changed it up a bit so now they can drive tourists around on their property. It's yeah, just crazy, but it's pretty cool. So you jump on here again. They give you some headsets and they drive you around their property and just tell you what you're looking at and things they do. And heaps of great. We saw like feral camels and donkeys and
I saw
kangaroos.
pictures of camels. So these are camels that someone
Hmm.
brought to Australia that
Mm,
they've now let gone wild.
yeah, that's right. So we actually have wild camels in Australia. It's
Okay.
mental, right?
Huh.
Yeah. And you do learn a lot about, particularly if you're a tourist, you obviously love seeing kangaroos. I love seeing kangaroos, but you hear how much of a pest they are to farmers, particularly
Sure.
kangaroos. Like they breed very quickly and survive on very little. So there's always lots of them. It's probably not very nice, but I believe that farmers have some sort of license where you can kill kangaroos on your property. So it's a real problem for our farmers. The tour that we went on, one of the Kinnan sons, he was our guide, and so it was just absolutely hilarious because he grew up on this property. So he was telling us all the funny things him and his brothers and sister that used to do. So you're getting, again, like this genuine experience. Haven't just flown in a guide and told them a few stories that they've
Sure.
learnt off by heart. It's the real deal, so it's really great. Yeah, and then they take you to like this watering hole somewhere on their property, and again, give you one of those billy can lunches that I was telling you about earlier. So you sit around and have a cup of tea and sit around the watering hole. It's really nice.
Okay.
So that tour goes for about 4 hours as well. So you'll be back around lunchtime or just after lunch as well.
Hi, I'm Kristen Bell. Carvana makes car buying easy. Isn't that right, hun? Dax? Dax?
Sorry, did you know about this 7-day money-back guarantee?
A week to evaluate seat comfiness, you say?
A week of terrain tests? Yeah, I can test the brake pad resistance at variable speeds.
Make sure all the kids' stuff fits nicely.
Make sure our stuff fits nicely.
Oh,
Right. Still need to buy the car. Getting ahead of ourselves here.
Buy your car with Carvana today.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
And so then I think I recommended earlier on, or mentioned earlier on, for day one, if you've got enough steam in the tank, you could go visit the Qantas Founders Museum.
Mm-hmm.
But I've put it on this afternoon, because I think that you need to give it a good few hours to really appreciate everything that it offers. So Qantas, if your listeners are familiar with Qantas Airlines, they are Australia's largest airline. And when I was putting some notes together for this podcast, I actually found out that they're actually the world's third oldest airline that's still in operation.
Huh.
Which
I
I
did
didn't
not
know
know
about.
that.
So
Okay.
they've been operating since 1920, apparently. And so they have this big fancy museum in Longreach, but funnily enough, Qantas was actually founded in Winton, which is the second part of this itinerary we'll get to shortly. But the first passenger flight was from Longreach, so perhaps that's why the museum is actually based in Longreach.
It's funny to me because you're describing Longreach, and I'm looking it up and finding that the population is like a little over 3,000 people. But there's a lot there.
There really is, which is probably why I recommended it. Like, I've been to lots of outback towns, and you can probably see the whole place and everything it offers in one day. But Longreach is just one of those places that you could really spend a week there. It's excellent. So, which is why I recommend it for people that are short on time, because you can get a fantastic outback experience in one place.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, the Qantas Museum is excellent for anyone with an interest in aviation history. Lots of different planes on display. It's multimedia as well, with lots of interaction. So if you've got kids with you, lots of things to play with. The part I really enjoyed as well is you can go out on these tours of some of the aeroplanes, like they take you in the cockpit and you can crawl around in the cargo area. They'll take you to see where the black box is. You can walk out on the wing of a 747. So
Fine.
those things are extra, but they're really fun.
And you're talking about an airline that started with biplanes and then went to 747, so I imagine there's everything in between.
That's right, all different planes. And another plane which was pretty cool to see is they have a 707 plane, which it was actually the Jackson 5's plane while they were on tour in the 1980s.
Okay.
It's still decked out with how it was when the Jackson 5 used it, so it's pretty leery with crazy colours, but very luxurious, so that's pretty cool to have a look at that as well.
That's funny.
And again, the museum is one of those places that someone might whip through it in an hour and someone might spend the whole day there, so it's really up to you how long you want to spend there. And there's a cafe there as well, so if you're there around and getting a bit peckish, there's food and everything like that too.
Okay.
So there are a couple of other things that you could do in Longreach, but I think that covers all the highlights.
Okay.
So that's why I recommend you also tie this trip into Winton.
Okay.
And the main reason I highly recommend you go to Winton is it's considered the dinosaur capital of Australia.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
very interesting. So they don't have anything dinosaur related in Longreach, but just up the road, we are in Outback Queensland. So Winton is 2 hours away from Longreach,
Okay.
but that's considered up the road in the Outback, right?
Sure.
Dinosaurs were only first discovered in Winton in 1999 when a sheep farmer found some bones on the property. Thought they were interesting, knew they were a bit too big to be sheep bones. I believe sent them away to the Queensland Museum and came back to say, hey, they're dinosaur bones.
Okay.
And so ever since then, locals and experts from all around the world have flown to Winton looking for dinosaur bones. And now they have a huge dinosaur museum in Winton. And it's absolutely fantastic. Anyone interested in dinosaurs, or I didn't know I was interested in dinosaurs until I went there.
Okay.
It's absolutely fascinating. The museum's called the Australian Age of Dinosaurs, and it's fairly new. I think, I say new, but I think it opened like in the early 2000s, so that's a little while now. And the museum's split into a few different sections, and every section of you only see it by guided tour, so it's not your sort of museum that you wander around yourself. And mainly that's because you are looking at actual dinosaur bones, so you can't be touching this stuff.
Okay.
It's a working museum, if you like. So there's laboratories there, and they're constantly preparing the bones or fossils. And I'm always hearing about new species they're finding and sending them to the Queensland Museum. So there's lots of work going on there.
Okay.
And then, so that's in the laboratory. You get to go and see what they're doing there. And then they have a room where they have some of the fossil bones on display. And then they have this area where you actually seeing real life dinosaur footprints on display. It's this big area. It's 54 meters long, and it's got all of these dinosaur footprints. But so what they did is they found these dinosaur footprints somewhere on a property in Winton. And so to protect it, they've somehow carved it out of the ground bit by bit, put it on a truck like a jigsaw puzzle, and brought it back to the museum and put it all back together.
Okay.
It's indoors, it's protected, and it's climatized, what do you call it, climate control and all of this stuff. When you go to have a look at it, you have a guide and showing you, this is that dinosaur footprint, and we think this happened here. And so it's pretty surreal to think, wow, this is, to me, dinosaurs are something I see in a Steven Spielberg movie. Like, it's not real, but so it really does bring it all to real life. And then lastly, there's an area where you can walk around yourself, and it's just, they've recreated some dinosaurs and the sizing of the dinosaurs so that you walk around these different areas and you see the different dinosaurs and what they look like and how big they were compared to each other. So that's quite interesting as well.
Okay.
We've left Longreach that morning, and I recommend leaving early. People who like to sleep in won't like this, but I recommend you leave Longreach at 6:30 that morning.
Okay.
And that way you'll get to the museum at 8:30 when it opens.
Okay.
Because most of this is outside, and again, like I said, it gets hot. So this way you can sort of see most of the museum before the middle of the day. What else can I talk to you about the museum? Yeah, a couple of hours. So there's 4 sections, and each section is about 30 minutes. But it's not back to back, so you've got to allow time. And it's on a really big property, so you've got to allow time to walk between each one. So a couple of hours, 3 to 4 hours is what you need to see that museum.
Okay.
And there's a cafe on site as well, so no doubt you'll be looking for ice cream or cold water there. Yeah, I remember the day I was there, it was so hot. And the landscape there is amazing though. Like, Winton is quite different to Longreach, like it's much more barren, which might sound really boring that I'm saying it's amazing, but I just love like seeing that the vastness of the nothingness, if that makes sense. Like, it's fascinating to look at.
Yeah, this is more what I pictured. Nothing taller than a foot tall for as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, because as far as I'm aware, there's not really any waterways in Winton, so that's probably why it's more barren.
Interesting.
So the museum is a little bit out of town. Oh, off the top of my head, I'm going to say maybe 30 minutes from Winton. And I think go there straight from Longreach, go to the museum, and then after you've been to the museum, drive into town, and you probably wanting some lunch then. So next up, I'm going to recommend you go to what's called the Waltzing Matilda Centre. Do you know Waltzing Matilda, Chris?
Sure. That is the one song I think everybody outside Australia knows from Australia.
They do? There you go. So it's sometimes considered as Australia's unofficial national anthem because it's not
Mm-hmm.
our national anthem, although some people think it is not. But it is obviously a very famous Australian song, and it was written in Winton
Oh,
by a
I
very
did not know
famous
that.
poet. I
Okay.
was telling you, yeah, and so I was telling you earlier how poetry was very popular in the outback because they didn't have Netflix or Facebook. So when they're at night time finishing work for the day, they wrote and read poetry to each other, which sounds, yeah, a bit odd to me, but that's what they did. And Banjo Patterson, very famous Australian poet, he wrote Waltzing Matilda near Winton, and the very first time it was played in public was also in Winton at the North Gregory Hotel, which is still there today, and the actual piano it was played on is still there today, so you can see that.
Okay.
So the Waltzing Matilda Centre is basically a museum about the song Waltzing Matilda. Supposedly, it's the first museum in the world dedicated to a song.
Okay. I have nothing
So,
to disprove
like,
that.
it's crazy. I don't know. But look, but they do have some other things in there as well as information about the song. There's some information about Winton's connection with World War One and an art gallery with different exhibitions, as well as a bit of information about Qantas as well. Like I said, Qantas was actually started in Winton, but the flights were out from Longreach, so there's that connection as well.
Okay.
You might spend an hour or two there. Then I'll talk about accommodation that I recommend in Winton. So I've got two similar to in Longreach. So the North Gregory Hotel, which I just mentioned before, was where
Mm-hmm.
Waltzing Matilda was first played. It's the pub. It's a fabulous old pub. It's absolutely beautiful. Been fully restored. Recommend you staying there while you're in town. It's right in the middle of the main strip, so great connection to shops and that around town. And you've got the pub there, which serves excellent meals.
Okay.
But if you're wanting an amazing experience, I guess like the Mitchell Grass that I recommended in Longreach, there's a place
Mm-hmm.
called Rangelands Outback Camp, but there's only 6 of these glamping tents here, and you have your own personal chef, and all your meals are cooked and provided for you in this beautiful open air dining area where you're just sitting there looking over that vastness of nothing, like I was talking about before.
Okay.
I actually haven't stayed here before because it's really new. I think I can't remember when it opened, but I don't think it was open when I was in Winton. But I was talking to the operators at a conference I was in, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, but really expensive. So, yeah, it might not be something for everybody.
Okay.
Okay, so that's basically that day in Winton. Now, if you don't have your own car, the Outback Pioneers can organise a day trip from Longreach to Winton. So it is still possible for you to go and do a day trip in Winton as well. But
Okay.
it's going to be pretty rushed, right? You won't have much time to see everything.
Got it.
On day 6, there's more dinosaur stuff to see. There's a dinosaur stampede. It is 90-minute drive outside of Winton, but you've made it this far, you might as well keep going. So here, I told you about at the age of dinosaurs where they had the footprints that were brought in. But
Yep.
here at the dinosaur stampede, you'll see a huge area of dinosaur footprints. I believe there's over 3,000 footprints, and it's right where it happened. They haven't been moved. This is exactly where it was. And it's absolutely amazing. I loved it. Whereas the footprints at the Age of Dinosaur Museum, I had to use a bit of imagination to see the footprints, but here you could see it, no imagination required. And so some experts have analysed this over time, and what they believe to be is that there were some smaller dinosaurs drinking from a river, and where a bigger dinosaur come across and to try and eat the little dinosaurs basically, and then all of the little dinosaurs have run everywhere. So there's just these footprints scattered everywhere, and it's absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend you go there. And then also around there, there's lots of hikes that you can do as well. But again, remember it's hot, but there are some small hikes that might take you 20 minutes or so, which I recommend. Or there's some longer hikes, but Obviously, if you want to do that, you might want to go earlier in the day.
Okay.
Then head back into Winton. So now you've got the afternoon in Winton. You can have a look. There's some other sites that won't take you very long to see. Like there's a musical fence that someone's put a bit of rubbish together that you can actually play these instruments. And it was, I believe, this musical fence was in the Coyote's 2030 Grammy Award album, which is pretty
Okay.
amazing. There's another place called Arnos Wall where a man has basically got together everybody's rubbish, or they say one man's trash is another one's treasure. And he's put this wall, and there's everything in this wall, like motorbikes, typewriters, oven wheels, TVs, washing machines, you named it. So you can have a look. That's interesting. There's an open air theatre, so if you feel like going watching a movie at night, you can go and see that. Lots of opal shops in Winton. Around Winton, you can find opals, so there's a lot of shops there where you can buy them. For anyone interested in trucks, there's a truck museum. I went there. It's not really my thing, but I did see a lot of families with little kids that seem to be really into it. That's pretty cool if you're into old trucks. But look, there are other things in town. There's a pool if you get hot. We visited the pool a few times while we were in Winton.
Okay.
Yeah, and look, that's basically Winton. Like, you can really see Winton in 2 days. So on your 7th day, then I recommend you head back into Longreach and you catch your flight, whether that's to Townsville or Brisbane.
Excellent.
And look, I think I have got some other things about when to go, but I think we talked about that earlier on in the podcast.
Well, yeah, and we're for an hour and your headphones are dying, so we're gonna start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
I've got some wrap-up questions for you. You were standing in the prettiest spot in the Queensland Outback. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
Right now?
If you were standing at the prettiest spot in the Outback of Queensland, where would you be standing and what would you be looking at?
In Longreach and Winton, or anywhere in the Outback?
I'll give you both. Let's do both. First, Longreach and Winton.
There's a place called Cobble Gorge, which is quite north, and there's a beautiful infinity pool in the resort there that looks out over to a beautiful lake in the Cobble Gorge. It's just stunning. I really enjoyed Cobble Gorge there. In Longreach and Winton, let me think. I really enjoyed probably being like going on the Thompson River and just sitting there and looking across the water and seeing the beautiful colours in the sky as the sun sets. It's spectacular.
Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in the Outback.
Oh, the people you meet, like, they get really down to earth people, and they have these funny stories to tell, and the way they tell it, there's Australian slang and then there's slang out in the Outback. It's just hilarious. Yeah, you're always smiling when you hear their funny stories.
And if you had to summarize this region in 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
3 words. It's beautiful, just so beautiful. Welcoming. The people in the Outback I just find just so friendly, welcoming, and maybe humbling. Humbling. You just feel you're getting back to the land, and it's rugged. It's rugged, it's harsh, but it's just beautiful at the same time.
You mentioned that the people who were running the tours in Longreach, that they were having a hard time making a go of it as a cattle station or as a sheep station. My uncle, who lived in Australia for 51 years, pretty much lost his shirt in a cattle station in Queensland because the drought, basically one of the many droughts in the area. And he was an agricultural engineer who put in big dam systems and things like that. So he was someone who knew what to do. But if there's no water, you can't do anything with it. I've certainly heard his stories.
That's right. Mother Nature can be really tough.
Our guest again has been Melissa Delaware from thriftyfamilytravels.com, but more importantly, queenslandtravelguide.com.au. And Melissa, if we wanted to send people to this rather new website, to your best post on the Outback, where are we sending them?
I'm going to write this post up afterwards, since I did some research for this podcast. I'm going to put this up in a post. So it's Not there yet, but it will be, and you'll be able to find this itinerary for Longreach and Winton.
Send me the URL and we'll put it in the show notes so people can go right there.
No problem.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for Queensland and particularly for the Outback.
Thanks so much, Chris. See you all in the Outback.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrente a sus rivales, enfrenta tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre al app para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
A special thanks to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. If you've had a great trip and Amateur Traveler got you there, then think about becoming a patron of the show. You can learn more by going to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. I got an email from Anne after the episode we did recently on Grenada. And Anne said, "Hi, Chris. I've been an avid listener for many years, and I love your show. I was a little disturbed, however, that the guy talking about Grenada was encouraging people to actively interact with Mona monkeys. They are wild animals, and I feel they should remain as such, no matter how friendly they might be. I hope you feel the same way, and having listened to you over the years, I think you probably do as well. Anyway, just putting in my 2 cents. Thank you so much for everything you're doing for the travel community. You kept us all very happy during the very hard COVID years. Keep traveling." And thanks, Anne. I have to say I was a little split on this because I had the same reaction as you do, and yet I also know that if you go to Amateur Traveler and you search on a trip that I did to Botswana, you can see a picture of me with a meerkat on my head. And it is a wild animal. These were habituated. They were used to being around people, and they have this natural thing that they like to climb on the tallest things so they can look out for predators. And so it's actually a natural behavior, but you're interacting with wild animals. So I don't know, maybe I'm just a hypocrite. I'm getting quotes in for the Amateur Traveler trips this year to Japan and Morocco. Hope to announce those soon. And if you want to know more about those trips, go to amateurtraveler.com/trips. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.
Got to see one more